reality sets in, and we're here.
Respect isn't given, it's earned. In blood.
Boxing King Media, Paulie the Magic Man Malignaggi, literally 48 hours or so after your fight. I didn't want to speak to you straight after the fight because he looked like he was in a bit of a bad way. But first, obvious question I've got to ask you: how are you feeling, like mentally and physically right now, Paulie?
Before the fight, people saying, "Oh, you're turning back the clock. You're getting you look younger. You feel great." Well, after the fight, I feel my age.
Yeah.
After the fight, I feel my age. Yes, I'm sore. It was a hard-fought battle. Credit to Tyler Goodjohn. He really, made it tough for me. I felt like I was more skilled, but Tyler never stopped trying, never stopped going for it, and lived up to his reputation. But he also lived up to the reason why he was the one who was chosen for this fight. I didn't want a gimme. I wanted a guy who would bring big attention to the sport, to the fight, to the promotion, and also, while at the same time being somebody that had carried a name of respect in its promotion, and he would live up to it, to that standard. And Tyler did all those things.
Yeah, he definitely did. Before we speak about more stuff, I've got to shout out the restaurant we're in right now. You said to me a couple of days ago after this fight, I've got to find a good curry house because he was craving curry. So we found the Blue Mango restaurant in Rainhill over here near Liverpool. I recommend anybody to try this place out. It's like a hidden gem.
Good stuff.
What did you enjoy? I think you had the jalfrezi. You enjoy it?
Yeah, it was good.
Are you fan of Asian food?
I'm a big foodie in general, So I've been on a diet for a while this year, so it's been good for a couple of days to eat some normal stuff and not worry about what the scale's gonna say,
Good stuff, man. I'll just touch on it briefly because we did talk about this before the fight. But you fought Tyler Goodjohn, who is no journeyman. He's literally a guy with a winning record in bare knuckle. Wasn't he? He was a lot bigger than you on the fight as well, which is quite interesting to see because size-wise, he looked like a welterweight versus a middleweight when you guys stood next to each other. So, credit to you for wanting a challenge.
Yeah, when I first started training, I wasn't sure I would be able to get to my old weight class. So I said that I wanted to fight at junior middleweight, and when we did the fight at junior middleweight, Tyler ended up becoming the premier name that we ended up coming up with, because again, I didn't want somebody that was going to give me a freebie victory, So, I didn't really think about what the general consensus would be. I just wanted a fight that everybody would respect. And in my mind, I was just thinking positive and say, it's a fight I'm going to win either way. Before we even picked an opponent, But I didn't realize the general consensus would be that I would lose the fight. Actually, we just picked them, and then there was a general consensus that I would lose the fight. And the odds makers in Britain, I think it was William Hill, they had Tyler as the favorite slightly, So, I don't focus too much on opinion, so I didn't really harp on it. But it got back to me, and especially fight week, people were talking to me like, "Yeah, you're an underdog, Well, so it's funny how it went that way, But that's the kind of respect we wanted to carry into the fight. We didn't want a freebie opponent.
One of the biggest things that stood out to me about the fight was in the pre-fight build-up, there's one line that you used and that stuck with me. Even whilst I was sat watching the fight, I was thinking to myself, shit, he meant every single word of that, what he said. Your words were, I'm from old Brooklyn, not the new hipster Brooklyn. Yeah. And if people research that, I know what you're talking about, just to give some context to that. Just the kind of guys you've shared the ring with, Ricky Hatton, Juan Diaz twice, Amir Khan, you stopped Sanchenko in Ukraine, you fought Adrian Broner, you fought Zab Judah, you fought Danny Garcia, you fought Miguel Cotto at a time when nobody wanted to fight him. If you look back, that he was avoided at that time. You fought him, you bust your jaw, but you put it on him, you made the fight a lot closer than it should have been. So it says a lot about you. I think people see you as this clean-cut guy who's a pundit, who's on TV, wears nice suits. But behind all that, this is crazy mofo who just wants to fight.
Yeah, it's where I was I wouldn't say I was raised that way. I come from a family that tried their best. There was problems everywhere. But my family tried their best. But there was internal problems as well, and that affected me. And I was a tough kid from Brooklyn. And I kind of I wasn't a big kid, so it wasn't like I was a tough kid from Brooklyn who went around causing trouble on purpose. I just got, confusing times, tough times, and you just end up, going in a direction that your life maybe shouldn't be going in. And boxing was something that kind of saved me. It's movie-esque in that way. A lot of people will tell you that kind of stuff about boxing, and for me, it was kind of the case. But yeah, that's kind of character that built me. So it's like when you come from that kind of character and that kind of city, that kind of place that breeds these kind of tough characters and tough backgrounds and tough situations. And it has changed. That's why I said I'm not from the new hipster Brooklyn, because if you're from Brooklyn if you're born in Brooklyn in the past 25 years or so, it's not my Brooklyn. It's not the Brooklyn I was raised in. The Brooklyn I was raised in made me the fighter that I am, and made me, this fearless person. I don't want to say anybody's necessarily fearless. I think we all have fear. I think fear is healthy. It's the way you react to fear. I guess it's like Rocky 5. Are you gonna make it freeze you, or are you gonna let it burn? Are you gonna burn you up, or are you gonna let it burn the opponent? Right. So I've been a fearless person in the face of fear, and I think my resume speaks that way, regardless of how scary the situation is, or whether whether I end up taking a loss in the process or whatever. So it was a bit insulting to sort of fall into this sport that you begin to realize when I first had my first foray into it 6 years ago is mostly MMA fans and not boxing fans, mostly MMA media and not boxing media that covers it. And that's when I started to realize, wow, these people are very, very stupid. This is a very stupid crowd. This is actually a crowd that's so stupid that it's beyond the ability for anybody to make them intellectual or intelligent about the sport that they themselves watch, which is quite rare. Usually you have a fan base that is, when it's their sport, they're at least something knowledgeable about their sport. I thought I was finding it fascinating to have the McGregor problem and then the Lobov fight and give the explanations for the Lobov fight and not be taken seriously. And even now, actually, I'll see some comments where after I've won this fight, there's some comments like, well, what happened with Lobov 6 years ago? Like sarcastic, still not getting it, even despite seeing the two-handed Paulie Malignaggi, still not getting it that was an effect of a one-handed fighter that still got robbed regardless. But you have to be intelligent enough to get all that, and they're not. It's really fascinating to see. I think boxing fans give me that credit. At least the old school ones do. They know the generation I come from, and I think that's what I lived up to. Now, I'm not scared to fight. I've never been scared to fight, and I've actually, we live in a world that's very sensitive, so I've got to learn to, do my best to, control those emotions a lot of times, and I've tried to walk away from fighting altogether at times, and kind of close you back. That's an inner battle I think I have with myself. But it does sometimes irk you to be in a world full of pussies that are the keyboard tough guys, But I've learned to ignore a lot of it.
Explain this to me, Paulie. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the first time since 2016 your hand was raised as a winner in the ring.
Yeah.
Tell me what that feeling was like.
Yeah. I mean, I've fought twice since 2016 that I lost, right? I lost to Eggington in 2017 and then retired. And then I had the Lobov fight, which I was robbed in 2019. And I was retired between those fights, and then I was retired again after those fights. So yeah, to come back off this long layoff, most of it in which I was retired, and come back and win. And come back and win in a fight where I was the underdog, it feels good, Prior to Lobov, I never lost to a fighter I shouldn't have lost to. I never lost to a fighter that I was favored to beat. And even in the Lobov fight, it took a robbery for that to happen. But in this fight, I was once again an underdog, and once again I got to win. It's not, I've had to do that a lot in my career, and it felt good not just to turn back the clock, but to do it in that way, to do it in a way where I had, proven naysayers wrong before, and I, prove them wrong again. And yes, I know my name brought more attention to the promotion, but Tyler is a dog, and that's why he was chosen. He's a pit bull, man, and he was the guy for the sport, and I think together it was a good combination of electric and thunder.
Explain this, because obviously since we put that video out, with your update from the hospital, obviously I'm going to talk about your injuries in a bit. One of the things, you had a massive outcry from people in the boxing world, from like WBC chairman Maurizio Sullivan, putting a sincere message out to you. Timothy Bradley put a video out today telling you to just pack it in and have kids and raise kids and all that kind of stuff. And obviously there's narratives out there, people are saying you had so many big fights, big paydays, big headline shows, why do you need to fight, all that kind of stuff. So you're the only person that can answer and explain, you've still got an urge to fight. Obviously we've seen Kell Brook get announced yesterday, he's going to carry on fighting. So why does Paulie Malignaggi need to fight, and why bare knuckle?
Bare knuckle gets you respect. It gives you the opportunity to accomplish something different. There's, two sport combat, I've already done professional boxing. It's very difficult to reinsert yourself back into the ratings of professional boxing. I understand and know the politics of professional boxing. While the politics of a new sport, you can sort of maneuver a little bit better if you're a name in another combat sport, because they want those names to sort of join them so that they can promote that new sport. So from that perspective, it became sort of, a no-brainer. But I think what I've shown here, and what I've showed even in the first time I did bare knuckle, is that a boxer can translate to bare knuckle. I think a guy like Austin Trout also showed that. I think even guys that weren't world boxing champions, for example, like Jared Grant, who's a good fighter in BKB and has also fought in BKFC, they show good boxers, when the mentality is correct, can easily do bare knuckle fighting and translate their boxing into bare knuckle. Boxing doesn't necessarily, it's sort of hybrid, so it's not just boxing, but if you know how to translate your boxing, bring it over to bare knuckle, there's a certain method and a certain way you do it, it's gonna work. It's a superior skill set. It's the most superior skill set you can bring to bare knuckle. So, and then in 2 fights that I fought in bare knuckle, I found myself extremely superior against guys who, were gutsy, ballsy guys that, made it difficult in that way. But I was the more skilled fighter, and that's what sort of buttered my bread in both fights,
There's another massive misconception out there, that obviously people saw that video and saw the crazy cuts you had on your face, your eyes, your jaw, your hands all swelled up, and people think that you've received them injuries on the back end of getting beat up. Obviously that wasn't what happened.
yeah.
So I'll let you explain your injuries. I know you've already told me, obviously the cuts were from headbutts.
Yeah.
Eye poke obviously messed up your vision a bit.
Yeah.
And am I right in saying your hands are good?
Yeah, my hands are pretty good. They swelled up though, so they didn't break, but they definitely, I can't close them, so there's stuff.
We're putting that out there. Paulie's hands are not broken.
They did not break, no, but
So-
they've got some severe, there was some micro fractures in his hand, but you're not gonna wear a cast for those, but still, they are swollen. My hands are unfortunately rather delicate, so I've got to be careful the way I throw punches and the way I punch, and I did focus more on closing my hands this fight, but still wound up having some hand problems and hand issues that caused me to, lower the punch output in the second 2 rounds, in the last 2 rounds of the fight. It's going to be opinions, because obviously optics are a big influencer, and they give a big perception is reality a lot of times. For example, with Tim, who's my buddy, Tim Bradley, I get it, I understand where he's coming from, but Tim also took a lot of damage in the BAREKNUCKLE fight, for example. He was also a fighter who in some fights, went to battle like that. I don't think this fight had anywhere near that kind of damage. The optics of exterior damage gives the impression that there's more damage than actually is happening. I think the most risky thing I had dealt with was probably the eye pokes, which is probably the thing that the optics wouldn't tell you that would be the most dangerous thing. I think the most dangerous thing I dealt with the other night was the eye pokes. Good shots, it's part of fighting. I broke a couple of ribs on some fouls, okay. So the fouls in bare knuckle, can be a bit more rough than the fouls in pro boxing. You can pay for them more. Kidney punches at short range in a clinch in pro boxing probably won't break your ribs. Kidney punches in a clinch in bare knuckle, because it's with your bare knuckle bone to bone, fracture my ribs and give me hairline fractures on my top of my hip. All right, But I've always said that concussion risks are much higher in a striking sport like boxing, while bare knuckle, there's much less chances of bad concussions, bad brain trauma, but there is a higher chance of blood and broken bones. Blood and broken bones are never going to kill you, you know. So the optics can be as bad as they want, but it'll never be that risk of pro boxing. And pro boxing is a sport that I love. I mean, it's where I made my reputation. But you know, I also am going to defend bare knuckle where it needs to be defended, and I'll tell you where it is more dangerous. With the eye pokes, it's more dangerous. Of course, you're risking retinal issues. You know, I'm still waiting my eye to be in a position where I can get my retina checked in a couple of days, and we'll see. You know, after the eye pokes, it was very painful. I still don't have the full vision back. So, you know, you're not dealing with something that's this is worse than that. Optically, one may give you the opinion, but personally, I think pro boxing is more dangerous. But it doesn't mean bare knuckle is not dangerous. But surely, don't judge from the optics. We're fighting for 15 minutes. I mean, it's not bad. And yeah, it gets rough. Of course, it gets rough. So does pro boxing. And in pro boxing, you find the championship fight, you find 36 minutes. The non-championship 10 rounds, you find 30 minutes. It's a lot of time for a lot of damage there. So I don't know. There's a lot of misconceptions. And then, like I said, you add into the fact that, unfortunately, boxing fans who are a bit smarter than MMA fans don't really watch bare knuckle. So you add into this, unfortunately, recipe a myriad of idiot fans, and that doesn't help either. You know, that there's the majority of fans that watch bare knuckle are morons and it's idiots, and you know that it makes it that much more difficult to understand and you know that much easier to have misconceptions about it. But in reality, I think those of us that do it, and I think, you know, Austin Trout is a much less outspoken person than me, but I think if we would speak to Austin, he would probably agree with a lot of the same things I'm saying, you know. And also, I'll say it again, if you know how to translate your boxing to bare knuckle, you'll be successful if you're a world-class boxer. I think I've shown that in both fights I've done at bare knuckle. And I think Austin Trout has shown that even better than me. I think Austin's been tremendous.
I want to talk about your experience with the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK. But before we do that, only if you're comfortable doing it, do you reckon we could see how bad the eyes are and that?
Yeah.
You've had your, obviously, stitches in as well.
Keep in mind, a day or two after the fight, you're getting worse first before you get better. So optically, it's going to look worse. But this is also the same thing in pro boxing. You don't see your favorite pro boxer after a 12-round fight 2 days later. So 2 days later, they also look worse. After all my pro boxing matches, the day after the 2 days later, I always look worse as well. So, you know, keep this in mind. And there's stitched up here. And obviously, there's a little puffiness and swelling. So but the worst of it is gone, you know. Like, that's the only thing bothering me more right now, because even my eyesight is much better in my right eye. It's not back 100%, but it's much better. So I'm just looking for confirmation from the retina test. But the only thing that's bothering me real bad, which is something, you know, I think anybody who's had rib injuries will tell you, is the rib injury, you know, the broken ribs, you know. Is that, again, it was a freak foul, but it is what it is, man, you know. I mean, we're warriors in there. Tyler did what he had to do, you know, that's it. It's like, I don't, if there's fouls in there and the referee doesn't see them or isn't so strict about them, and you can get away with it, you're gonna get away with it. And we're fighting in there. We're not playing patty cake. So I don't even have regrets about that. It's just part of the game, right? So that's actually the thing that bothers me more. It's not any of this. This is nothing, guys. This is absolutely nothing. This is gonna be gone in a week or two, you know. So it's not really something to harp on. It's injuries that are something you harp on.
A big part, obviously, where it took, I think, 12 hours or so from the moment you went into hospital to your stitches getting done. I think there's been a big misconception, and a lot of people said online, oh, why didn't the doctor at the venue sort it out? Obviously, just for clarity, you was kind of chucked in an ambulance and sent to hospital straight away. So that option kind of went out the way. And also, obviously, from doing some research, the doctor that's normally at fight nights, they're not experts in stitches.
It's not plastic surgeon.
It's not plastic surgeon. It tends to be somebody who does it here and there, might do it once a month. So you got a plastic surgeon.
So if I had to
expert.
wait 10 hours for a plastic surgeon, I got to the hospital, say, around 10:30, somewhere between 10 and 11. I'll say 10:30 just to keep it in the middle. I didn't get stitched up till 7 a.m. But if I had to go back and you tell me, okay, you get stitched up and be out of here much faster, but if you get a regular Joe Schmo doctor to stitch you, or you can wait for the plastic surgeon at 7 a.m., I think I'd have probably waited for the plastic surgery anyway. But so if that was the way it's gonna go that way. But yeah, it was definitely a first that I had to wait that long, because I've been in American hospitals as well, in big cities on weekend nights after big fights, and I'm not gonna say I got out within a couple of minutes, but definitely didn't take all night.
Well, apparently in the UK, or that particular area, again, I've been doing some research. It's called Max Pack, and apparently you would have had one plastic surgeon on that night shift covering maybe 3-4 hospitals. So you would have been in that queue, and obviously you're
Yeah, and
taking.
he didn't get there till 7 a.m. And when he got there, he was a very nice guy, and we did have a conversation. He did tell me he had come from 2 other hospitals, so because it did take a while to stitch me up. So we had a chat, and he was very friendly. Although the entire hospital staff, to be fair, were very friendly with me, and very nice people. But it's just it just felt like, I don't know, there was an understaffing problem or something. It just felt like something wasn't right. I don't know, maybe because I wanted to say, okay, England is like the United States, it's on the same level, so there's supposed to be the same level of service when it comes to medical, But maybe I had just had that misconception myself, because I'm also an Italian citizen, and I know that if I go to a Southern Italian hospital when I'm in Southern Italy, I know the service is already lacking, and it's a bit third worldish. But I'll expect that. I guess expectation was a little bit higher for English hospitals, and maybe I shouldn't have been so much higher.
I don't know if you read some of the comments, some wild ones, people saying, oh, you don't pay into the tax, so why should you jump the queue? People coming at some crazy shit.
It's not even about the queue. The fact that there even is a queue is the problem. I mean, I don't know. It's not really about jumping the queue.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you even have a queue? This is England. This is not
A third world
This is not
country.
Papua New Guinea. This is England. It's like,
So that's the point people are missing.
that's the point you're missing. There shouldn't be a queue, mate.
Why is one plastic surgeon covering 3 major hospitals?
Yeah, but again, that's like I always say, the low IQ of the modern social media generation is, you not only do they misunderstand you, but then they also assume to know what you said, besides being misunderstanding.
Last question for you, Paulie. Obviously, there's been an outcry. People giving you the credit for stepping in there like a warrior, taking the fight to him rather than boxing on the back foot in that tiny ring, which was crazy in itself. To people, worrying about you, not wanting you to fight again. Obviously, I get you because I know you, and I know you basically just love fighting. And I know it's not. Obviously, you're getting paid, but I know it's not a financial situation where you feel like I've got to fight to earn a living. I know it's not that. But are you going to carry on fighting?
I have to do some thinking. There's a lot of. It's not a one answer question. It's a question that I have to operate on the answer from different perspectives. Financial, for example, you see people, oh, does he need the money?
You see Adrian Broner recently, one of your former opponents, looks really bad.
Yeah, but it's not. There's different levels of needing money. Like, and for the people that chat shit, because there's people that are genuinely, care, right? When they talk about money, they genuinely feel bad. They hope that it's not the worst, right?
Yeah.
And then there's people that just chat shit and say, oh, he needs the money because he's, whatever. They're happy. They're almost happy that you need money. I don't want to make this arrogant, because it's not everybody that asks this kind of question is a bad person. But I don't also want to make the answer arrogant. When I fight and say I want money, I need money, I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but it may come off the wrong way to some people. But people that will take it for what it is should get it for what I'm trying to say. Some people that choose to be offended may choose to be offended by what I'm going to say, because it's not meant to offend, but it may be meant to offend depending on how you want to take it. I fight the financial reasons, and I fight for different reasons, one of them being financial. The financial reasons I fight is just so, after all these years of sacrifice, I never have to live like you at home. Like, I don't want to live like you, dude. I don't want to live a regular life. I want to live a rather extremely comfortable life, because that's what I worked hard for and that's what I got used to. So when I fight for money, it's not that I'm looking for a meal at the supermarket. It's so I can maintain the multiple houses I own in different US states, in different countries, so that I can go and choose to move around as I want to. It's not that I need to go shopping at the supermarket, or I can't pay a tax or something like that. There's different levels of where we're looking at financially. So I need you to understand that if you are asking those financial questions from a standpoint of of looking out for me, I'm fine. And I hope that's okay with you, that I'm fine. For those people that think they're chatting shit, the odds are I already live better than you. But I just do this to make sure I never have to live like you. And I don't care what kind of job you have, I still live better than you. Most likely. Odds are very high that I live better than you financially speaking. So I got used to that standard. Doesn't make me better than anybody else, but after so many years of living it, I do that. And I do that not just for myself, but for the people I care, the people, my loved ones as well. It's not just about me that I do this for. So that's the financial aspect. The other side of it is, yes, the drive. I mean, I didn't think, I always would miss the aura of a fight, the aura of a fight night, the feeling of adrenaline. You're always gonna miss that. I'll be commentating and miss that when the crowd goes crazy or it's a big fight. That what I would always miss. What I always said I wouldn't miss was the preparation and the training camp and the sacrificing and dieting and having to sleep early and making sure your meals are timed, making sure your meals are balanced, making sure you're sleeping correctly, making sure you're napping in between this. That's what I did. What I'd never miss. And you know what's funny? When I was doing it in this camp, I missed it. I actually enjoyed it. I don't know why. Because I thought I wanted to be away from that. You know, dieting and making sure the proper amount of time passes between my next workout. And then the food, and then, you know, okay, you got to eat at this exact moment because at this exact moment you're going to work out. And then at this exact moment you're going to sleep. The proper adaptation and preparation. And this workout at this hour, why? Because then this workout at this hour is better. Otherwise, if we mix the workouts, it's no good. You know? There was so much detail, and I thought I would hate that again. Instead, I missed it. I needed to be regimented again. I hadn't been regimented in a while. I needed to be regimented again. And you know what, man? I freaking missed it. And I was like, as hard as it was, when you like it, you don't feel like you're working.
You know, my big observation from it all was the fact that you turned up in shape, you came to win, and you wanted to win. If you turned up fat, because it would have been visible. If you turned up with a gut and you looked like out of shape, it'd be like, this guy's come for the bag.
Yeah.
But it's quite clear that you came to win.
And
I think not many people have picked up on that.
And not only that, I think people don't need to understand, like, people were rather shocked that I was aggressive from round one. The plan was going to be aggressive from round one when we signed the fight, when we announced the fight in June or May. I knew already how that fight was going to start. If you look at the Lobov fight, realistically, 6 years ago, Lobov is a southpaw. So every southpaw is a little bit different, so you can't be quite as aggressive because you first have every southpaw, you have to get their timing a little bit. But there's an aggressiveness to me even in the Lobov fight before I hurt my hand. So the plan even for Lobov was to be aggressive. The plan for this fight was to be aggressive. So it's not like, and then of course you balance it back out. You know, because in spots I'm going backwards, spots I'm going forward. But establish the aggressive tempo from the start, and I did that. I've done that in both fights. But you know, again, we're dealing with a fan base that watches the sport is that it's so stupid that it's like, I'm wasting my time to even explain it. You know, I've explained it so many times, so that's how I know they're too stupid, because no matter how many times I explain it, it's the same responses, the same redundant reactions to what I say and do. So you're never going to get it regardless. But I think, you know, there was the preparation, the mentality for the fight was there, and it never changed. You don't have to tell me bare knuckle boxing is not boxing, but boxing helps in bare knuckle boxing if you know how to bring that proper style of boxing to bare knuckle boxing. And I knew that. I knew that 6 years ago. I knew that now. 6 years ago, I broke my hand. Just because I broke my hand doesn't mean I didn't get robbed. Then you have to be intelligent enough to understand the adjustment I made 6 years ago, and then be intelligent enough to realize, wow, with that adjustment, that's amazing the way I'm boxing and controlling the fight, because I still made a guy box who didn't want to box, even when using one hand. But again, now you're raising the IQ. It's not like we got to reach genius IQ, but you're raising the IQ from outright idiot to like mild idiot, you know. But still, that's too high already, you know. But I was still I don't want to lose myself all over the place with this. It's still it was still something I missed in the end, you know. And I wanted to accomplish something. I wanted to shoot for something again. It really felt good to be going through all that, you know. And then to do it with BKB, which is a company that, you know, had stood with me during the controversy of, you know, being blackballed and all that stuff. Probox TV, BKB, these are companies that I really want to do well for, because they stood and got my back at a time when it got real bad. And, you know, for me, to see how BKFC got a sort of a launching point when I fought with them. I wanted to do that for BKB, and I hope that I'd done that, you know, in some way, brought some attention to this fight, you know, and
You definitely have.
BKB. So you know, I wanted to do that. I love trying to push Pro Box TV and BKB to a higher level with what I bring, with whatever it is that I can bring, because they've done a lot for me, you know, and that means a lot to me, because nobody cared when I got blackballed, while at the same time being the best analyst in this business, you know, still being blackballed at this point, you know. But when we talk about another reason for the financials, is where I talked about, it's just so I don't have to live like you, but it's also so that when you want me to behave a certain way and I don't believe in the way you want me to behave, I can do this instead of having to bow down like all these other guys do, you know. And that's yet another reason why I fight, because by fighting and winning, I can keep saying this every time you want me to behave in a way I don't believe in. I don't want to do this. I don't have to do this, but we live in a time where sometimes you got to do this, right? If you have any kind of backbone. And we're in a business that I noticed, especially recently, nobody has that kind of backbone. A lot of people are sellouts.
Well, that was the last question that I asked you there. This last thing I want to ask you, I will cut this out of the interview because I know you're very personal and you don't share your personal life, but I'm going to ask you this anyway. If you don't want this in there, I'll cut this out of the interview. But obviously you spent a lot of time around you over the last few years, so I know what you're like away from boxing. And I know you take care of your grandparents, your dad in Italy, you know, your grandmother and grandfather in New York. So you help them out in a lot of ways. And
I've got my relationship.
I know, but I think you talk a lot about yourself and how it's for your own luxury life, but I also know you take care of your immediate family. It's important to get that out there.
Part of that is so that my loved ones not only don't have to struggle, but live a life that I feel like they deserve, you know? Whether they've put in the time with me in some sort of way, whether you've raised me or whether you've dealt with me from a relationship standpoint, with been in my life, whatever, you know, there's many reasons. It doesn't matter. I choose what I do with my money. You know what I mean? And yes, I'm very generous with the people I love. I'm very generous with people I care about, and it motivates me to take care of them. But it motivates me to also, like I said, accomplish things, to do it in a warrior mentality, and to not have to be compromised. That because I can let myself down, but letting people I love down is worse for me. So I don't have to feel compromised because somebody wants to hold that over my head and try to cancel me and do something, and then I have to worry about not me. I don't care about me. I can live on the sidewalk. I care about the people I care about. Worry about the people I care about. So I can fight, make good money, and then, you know, have some solid companies like BKB and Pro Box TV continue to get my back. And, you know, I don't purposely throw it in your face. I try to, you know, the Bible says, and I try to become a more spiritual person. The Bible says, you know, season your words with salt in Colossians 4:6. So seasoning your words with salt means, you know, make them mild for people. You don't always have to be so offensive. I try my best, you know. I do have a little bit of a fiery personality and I have to work on that, but I also don't want to completely have to compromise myself at times when I'm asked to be, because there's things that I just won't believe in.
Well, I wanted to bring that up because I know I've never seen you advertise that you help out your grandparents and your parents, because I know a lot of boxers who make money, it tends to be just look after yourself and your missus and your kids, but you go beyond that. And I respect that about you, because you're not earning for yourself. And I know you've said there to the haters that, you know, F you, etc. But I think the reality is, and it's worth putting out there, is that you're providing a living for people beyond yourself and people that live in your house, and I massively respect that about you, and I think it needs to be said. That's why I saved it till the end, because I know you're very private and you don't like sharing these kind of things. So if you've got no issue with that, I'd leave this in the interview.
You can leave that. It's fine. You know, it doesn't go deep into my private life. It just kind of broach it.
Yeah, but it's good for context for people to know that you're not earning for yourself. You're earning for people. I know in your Italian culture it's quite big. Family is a big part of it. So yeah, that's it really, Paulie. Thank you for your time, mate, and thank you for letting me ask you whatever I wanted. So I always appreciate that. Any final words to your fans, not your haters, to your fans?
No, I think, you know, it's been a really cool experience to go through the past 6 months and get that support system from fans. When I was walking to the ring, sure, I've walked into much bigger arenas and I've walked into much louder spaces. Sure, it may have even paled in comparison to some of the other walkouts that I've had and in the places that I've been to, but I tell you, I missed it. you know, and I was pounding. I initially started my workout, if you notice, pounding my chest. I had to pump myself up, because, you know, that's how I used to pump myself up, like, time to fight. But it was almost emotional as I was walking. It was like, I almost like stopped it, like, to hold my heart, like, wow, I appreciate all you guys, you know. It meant a lot, you know. And not everybody was cheering for me, because I'm in England fighting Tyler, but it just like I went from this person that was walking to the ring like, yeah, what? You know, the way I used to try to walk to the ring, pump my chest, like I'm the best, whatever, you know, that anything to pump you up for fight. And on that walk, it's like, I'm not gonna say changed over, because my fight focus never left me. You saw it in the fight, obviously, but it's almost like, it's not just I'm the man. I'm not gonna pump myself up as I'm the man. I'm pumping myself up because I appreciate all of you. Wow. And I'm feeling this genuinely in this very moment as I'm walking to the Trigon. I really appreciate all of you, you know. And it was it meant something. It meant a lot to me.
Top man, Paulie, thank you, brother. I'll not squeeze your hand.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time, man, and yeah, all the best in whatever you decide to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, the dreams do come true. The reality sets in, and you know, we're here.
Respect isn't given, it's earned. In blood.